curious about that stuff confuses me as well, and it's kind of like what I want to learn here is not be afraid of, that terminology.
So, stepping back, did I break everybody's expectations with this workshop? That we were going to do a lot more PureScript and high-level stuff? Or was this sort of what you expected? Maybe that's a question to ask after.
We still got half an hour.
I wanted to understand, I read that Halogen tutorial, but I wanted to get someone to explain it in words out loud, so I could get the concepts a little better.
Sure.
And how the architecture works.
Sure. Hopefully we'll do that. Okay, let's do it, right? What are we waiting for? So, this product thing that we've been dealing with this whole time, is that the one? We're gonna do this, well, not all this crap. We're gonna do this in Halogen, okay? Is that too much? It'll be fine. We'll be all right, okay? We're gonna be just fine. So, let's get going.
Not literally.
Run Bower, install PureScript, Halogen.
I saw Phil Funky Lindsay's fly.
Cool. I'll get back to where I need to be. I'm sorry, did we all have that that command? Are we good? All right. So it has a lot of dependencies. It'll be all right though. Is that it? Did I get your problem with the?
My problem was between this and npm. So
Oh, I see.
So I have an error. So
They look like different modules. Is this just looping? What's going on here?
There you go.
It's done. We beat the compiler. All right. What do we say here? Cool. I'm going to delete all of this. Is that okay?
please do. We've been working for hours. But one on the meeting.
We can make another file. That's fine.
We can comment.
Right? We can do that. Yeah, format. Great. Ta-da. Module format. All right. We need like 1,000 dependencies. Not really, but we do need Prelude, of course. We need control.monad.af. This is different from f. And the main thing that's different here is that f is for like synchronous effects, whereas af is for asynchronous effects. That's where the a comes from. Af, a. So like with f, you get a single procedure that you invoke, and then it does the thing, right? With af, you have to pass in handlers for the success case and the failure case, sort of like you would do for a promise, and then you do the effect management you do whatever in the success or the failure case. It'll make more sense when we actually do it. By the way, we're doing that. What?
It's like a future versus a task or something.
Yeah.
For instance, network HTTP request would be an app.
Yeah, it could. Yeah.
Good. Has to.
You can make synchronous.
Synchronous HTTP request.
Yeah.
You should
Yeah.
never do it.
It's a parameter on xhr.open or something.
Microsoft came up with
Well,
this.
it's a callback.
But like,
That's different.
I think it was implemented as F before AF existed. So there's that as well. I mean, like we were talking about earlier, F doesn't really mean anything. It's just one way to handle effects. And so your effect could be asynchronicity, right? That's an effect. We need dom.html. Boy, I'm losing it. Types. That's not right. Types. HTML element. Also, I feel bad for making you guys type this out. You can you can use PureScript IDE, I think, to get most of this as we go along. But as I mentioned before, I don't have that set up on this computer. I'm sorry? Thank you. Also, why? Why am I typing this out? Right? There's got to be a better way to do this.
There is.
Are you using the IDE? No, I mean, yes, I get it. But are you using it right now? Should we do like a 2-minute and like get everything going? Okay. Maybe that would have been a good thing to do at the start, huh?
Yeah.
That's it. We got it. So,
By the way,
yes.
snippet. So, Mike, that's one snippet.
Oh yeah, right. Oh, I think I could have just copied this whole thing. But I mean, if you use the PureScript IDE, it like when it doesn't see something, you can tell it to bring it in, and it just pops it up at the top. So it's like what you would actually do when you're being a professional, I guess. But look at me. So let's talk about what we're gonna do with this component, right? If we look at if we look at this product thing, it doesn't really do much, right? All it does is like display something. So like it's just a function and it just returns this VDOM thing. So like the only thing that we would need in our query algebra is some way to like set this internal state of our component, and then the component can render itself, right? Like every time we get a change, we just tell it, here's your new state, and then go do your thing. Does that make sense? Or no? Is it questionable what I'm even talking about? Because that seems valid. All right. So let's just have an action, handle state, that takes some state, whatever it is, and then we have our query thing going on, right? So what is the state? What's the state that this component needs in order to be effectively the same as this one, right? Well, the state in this case is the price, the quantity, and the title, right? So that's all that we need, those three values, a number, an int, and a string, right? So our state, and we can use a type alias here because YOLO, is, what was it, price, that thing? Which was a number, quantity, which is an int, and title, which is a string. Does that make sense? The state that the state that we want for this component? Okay.
Well, I'd like to see more new types.
We got 25 minutes. Well, I mean, we could, right? And then do the deriving and then wrap and unwrap. We're not going to, but we could. So, I mean, that's pretty much it, right? We don't need anything more crazy than that. So let's define our component. Let's define our product component. And this is going to be a component that displays HTML with this query algebra, using this state, sending no messages in some context M.
You have to repeat that.
Yeah, sure. So to define a component, you have to say a lot of things about what the component does, right? So in our case, and I think in most cases for Halogen, we want to actually create HTML in the component, like our render function should be creating HTML, which is kind of an interesting concept. Can you render to something else? Yeah, sure. But like Halogen doesn't force you to do HTML, which is kind of cool. But anyway, so then the other thing that you need to know about a component is what its query algebra is, right? So we're saying that the query algebra is this thing called query, right? You also need to know what the state of that component is. Like what does its state look like? And in this case, it looks like that. And then this thing here is whether or not this component sends out messages when something happens. So like maybe every time we update the state, we like send out a message that we were just updated, like some string that just says we just updated the state to these values, right? That could be a thing that we do. We're not going to here, but that's a thing that we could do, right? And then other people can listen to those messages and do something based on that. Is that what you were asking? Did we just solve the problem?
No.
Oh.
But that actually solves another problem. But why void not unit? Like if you don't want to send messages?
So unit means that there is a value. Void means that there's no value. So if you say that it's your messages are of type unit, then you can send out unit messages. They're not useful, but you can still send them out. If you say that your messages are of type void, there's no value that you can send out. So you can't send a message, right? So you're making it explicit that you're not going to send a message rather than saying like, I might send you garbage that you don't care about. Does that make sense? Does that distinction make sense? Okay. Other questions about what we just wrote here? Oh. Why indeed? How do you do things? Like that? Oh, let's not do that. Yeah, no reason. Let's do A. No reason at all. Absolutely no reason. For some people. I don't care, so I do whatever.
I was just saying, could you use row polymorphism on that state record or whatever that state?
Ooh.
And then just, I can use the same state and pass it down to a bunch of components.
Like
And only what I care about.
one of those, and then
Yeah, and then if I care about the price, quantity, and title, that's cool, but if I have another component, I can pass the same like monolithic state down to it.
that seems plausible. Maybe it's not. I haven't tried it, but seems like a thing you could do. Yeah. Other questions? Okay. So, implementation time. This is real halogen array in here, people. It was all leading up to this. Are you not excited? No? So, to create a component, there's multiple ways to create a component. This function component creates a component from, four values. The initial state of the component, which is a function from some state you pass in to the state that you actually want it to be. Whereas in React, I think you just have a nullary function that you just create state in. The second is like how to render the component. The third thing that you pass in is like what to do on your query algebra when you get either an action or a whatever the other thing is. And then the last is like how you handle inputs or outputs. I don't know, one of the things. That. Okay. Cool. So initial state, we don't really need to do anything fancy, right? If somebody gives us state, we're just going to trust that they gave us the values that we should have, right? We're not going to do like balance checking or anything like that. So we're just going to get some state and return some state. The same thing, right? Nothing crazy, though I'm going to be kind of lazy and just say ID, which is just the function that does what we just did.
We get it for free, the ID? Like we get it?
It comes from Prelude.
It's identity.
I'm sorry?
It's identity.
Yes. We have a receiver, which we're not doing any fancy stuff there. So that's what we're doing. We're saying we're never going to worry about inputs that somebody gives us. We have a render, which we'll implement somewhere. And we have our eval function that we'll also implement somewhere. So let's do this. Render, for all halogen components, you always get the state that you're going to render to. So similar to how you have like props that come in on your function there, we're going to get some state, and then we're going to return component HTML.
Why do you need to write const nothing instead of just name?
So this should be a function that takes some input, whatever it is, and then gives you back a maybe of the query. So since we never want to do anything based on the input that somebody gives us, we're just going to not do anything. And that's what const is under hood. Does that make sense? All right. Am I losing you all?
Is it component HTML or component names? I wouldn't be surprised if right now.
No, you're right.
Thanks.
Did I spell the rest of it correct? Who knows? We'll figure it out. So you get a price, quantity, and a title, much like here. You get a price, quantity, and a title. And we're going to do same thing, a div with a value underneath it. So the Halogen HTML DSL has the first list of or array of values is the attributes that go on the element, and the next is the content of that element. Similar like what you would do in Elm or whatever.
Actually,
if
it's
that makes
actually
any sense.
exactly like how JSX is compiled. If you think about it, it's exactly the same. If you do a function, I mean, if you don't use JSX in React, that's exactly what you do.
Yeah. Because you tell it the name of the thing and then
Yeah,
and then the
that's
other.
what you do.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
there you go.
People don't like to do it. But there is no JSX to Halogen.
There could be. Do you want there to be? Make it happen.
Question.
Oh, we need our format function. Where did that come from? That was in product, right? Let's pull that in. Import products. Was it format prime that we had there in product? Say again? Oh, we didn't do that. Sorry, let's clean this up real quick. Do that in here, format. I'm sorry, what did you say about void?
Isn't it in Prelude? Isn't it Prelude?
I think so.
Maybe.
I mean, we'll find out shortly. So there's a format, there's a thing. I mean, this is this, right? Takes the state, gives you back an HTML. Cool. Although this is wrong now, right? Because this should be a maybe int. Otherwise, the quantity won't match up with that quantity. So there's our rendered deal. And then we still need eval, which is a natural transformation from query.
Pure Code even has a literature for it. It's delightful.
To a DSL of the same state that we're dealing with over that query algebra, and again with void.
I mean, I know what natural transformation is. I just don't know what component DSL is.
Yeah. I don't either. Let's look it up.
T type.
Oh, excuse me. What was it? Component DSL? So it's this, a type synonym for this halogen M with a couple of things already filled in. So what's a halogen M? A halogen M is this new type that takes an S, some query algebra, or not query algebra, some functor, something that's polymorphic, and like a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, that helped.
But so the thing that it's new typing around is the free implementation, the free monad of the halogen functor, the halogen algebra that has the variables there. So
Halogen M is a free monad of halogen F, which is a halogen functor. It does what?
and we're gonna keep going. So this is our halogen algebra. We're like, this is the basic idea of how halogen works, right? So you can, okay, that same type variables that, whatever. You can get ref, whatever that means, whatever a ref label is.
I guess ref is like exactly like React ref. You probably can get a reference to the HTML element itself.
Maybe.
It's an abstraction.
Well,
I guess so. It's a guess.
no, that's great. That's a great point. So like, this is just data right now. It doesn't specify anything about what getRef means with ref label and that function.
You can do
Right.
actual interpreter that says it. Wow.
Yeah, so the interpreter tells you what it
That's
does.
actually cool.
Yeah,
That's actually
yeah, right? So these are all the things that you can do with a halogen component. You can fork, whatever that means, par, whatever that means, raise, all these things, right? And there's no actual semantics on any of this data, but when you try to use it, like when you write the VDOM driver, I assume you need to like give semantics to each of these data types, right? Did that answer your question about what that was?
Yeah. And actually it makes sense that it's component DSL because this is a free monad. Really. You're writing a DSL and they interpret it after. Why are you laughing? It's not true.
No, I really appreciate that you said that it makes sense. Like I'm
Makes sense in free monad, but right in the same.
I'm excited that you said that. That's it. Okay. What about natural transformation? Do we need to go over that?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that
Maybe,
in Prelude?
I think it is. Where's my?
That's
So let's look for what.
Actually, you know what? We have 11 minutes left. I'll look it up later.
Okay. I don't think we're gonna get through everything. I'll be honest with
I'll
you.
get through one thing.
Well, I kind of got some bad news for you, bud.
Oh dear.
So we need to handle the different states of this query, right? So we have one state. So like the casing is kind of superfluous, but whatever, it's a pattern. And so we get some state here, and then we get like some description of what to do next. And this goes back to your point that this is just a free monad with a different name. And so what this next thing is like the next instructions to do when you're evaluating this component, right? We don't know what it is. We can't tell what it is actually based on the type. So there's nothing we can do except eventually put it into the DSL and then let the DSL handle it. That's what that squiggly arrow means, the natural transformation, meaning we can't look at, inspect, or do anything with the next on there. Do notation. This is the first time we did that, yeah? So what do we do when we get a state, right? When somebody gives us a new state, we just put it in there, right? We're just done, right? Cool. And then we need to tell the DSL to do the next thing. Does that make sense?
No, this case.
Came from where?
From Prelude. it takes a value and puts it into some applicative value.
I couldn't just write next. I have to put it in pure. Why?
Right. So handle state is this thing, right? So state, we know what it is.
Yeah.
The A is whatever this polymorphic query thing is here. And what this data type says, this squiggly arrow, this natural transformation.
It has to be in a function, right? Because the function itself has to be in a function in order for that to work.
Yeah.
I have to lift it, what you call it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? Any other questions?
This is backtracking just a little bit. Did you touch on the where thingy there?
Probably not. So what is where? I can't give you a good answer, but like it gives you a place to write local definitions that aren't in the expression. So everything in PureScript is an expression. Well, I think everything in PureScript is an expression. There you go. So if we wanted to write, I mean, we didn't really need the where. We could have written render right here, right? And take the state and like figure it out, blah, blah, whatever. But like, that's a huge lambda, so I just pulled it out. Yeah, and there's that in this too, right? You can write let in and do the thing. Yeah. This isn't going to end well. Let me just tell you that right now, because there's like a bunch of stuff we still need to do.
Until 5:30, I think.
Is it?
I think so. That's what I saw in the list. So probably have more time than.
Well, let's figure that out first.
Maybe I'm wrong. Racing to the website. I mean, the next
5:30 is, I
presentation
think,
is 5:30, so yeah.
We should probably leave a little bit before that then. Okay, so how can we handle this? So maybe I can go through the slides and kind of say what I was hoping to do. So the idea was to implement the component and then implement this like runner for halogen stuff that you can use in React, right? So like all it would do is make like a div with no, I'm sorry? Oh, okay. It would make a div and then give that node to the halogen runner or the halogen main program, and then you like set up all the hooks and all that stuff, and it communicates back and forth. So like, yeah, it's like one last thing, but it's also a big last thing. So I don't know if you guys want to like go over, if you want to stop now, if you want me to put the slides up somewhere and we can just.
One question. So, can you write your application completely in Halogen?
Yes.
Without the run?
Yes. You can definitely do that. Without the hacky runner that I'm trying to,
Oh, okay.
where you like embed it into a node, into a DOM node.
Do you have the code already? You can just walk through
I
the code?
can give it a shot. Where's my thing here? Let's see. So, that's a thing. So what are we doing here? We're going to make a function that we can call from JavaScript that will take in the node that we want to throw our halogen component into and the state of that component. And then we're going to return this asynchronous thing that has the effects that halogen needs to run and the callback that we use in order to put the state into the halogen component. Does that part make sense? I don't know how. So let's just keep going. So yeah, we get a node, we get a state, we create our, we run the component that we have with that state on that node. And what that does is that instructs Halogen to actually do the like building of this component into the thing and like start managing its own state, right? So at this point, the run UI would have made a node somewhere in a DOM element, right? Generally, the thing is to, like you were saying, just choose some place, like maybe it's the body, maybe it's inside some other document somewhere, but like you choose that node and then you run it. And then like you have Halogen run the thing rather than doing this weird AF thing. But since we want to be able to like communicate into there, we use the return type of what this run UI is, which is a record that has like a way to query things and a way to like submit things. And so what we're going to do, a query means like use the query algebra, not like query in another sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to return this, you didn't see that. We're going to return this callback where if somebody gives me a new state, we're going to run a query action with handle state on that new state. So we're going to force the component to do its update. Does that make sense?
You don't need to return this. You're just returning this because it will be useful.
From the JavaScript side. Yes. Yes, exactly.
But if your whole thing was like for the body, you would just run UI
Yeah. And then like run Halogen AF and you're done.
that's simple.
Yeah. Way simpler than this. But we're overtaking JavaScript. Why not? So that's the deal from that side, right? And then, where's my thing here? So this is going to be fun. Are you ready for this? So we need some sort of like runner on the JavaScript side that does this like embedding, and like whenever we get a new state, we flush it down into the Halogen component. So there's this, which is this isn't tedious, I swear. Whoa.
Could you like put that code in Slack or something?
Sure. I'll put the slides up, and then that'll be easier for everybody. Or I could just fork this repo, commit it, and then you can do that. So we're making like a React component here, and the underlying goal is that we just make this div here, and we let Halogen use that div to do its thing, right? So we run to the div, and we use this refs thing. So this is like the really hacky part, right? We pass the props in there, and then when we initialize it, we get the props that we're supposed to get, and we get this underlying node that Halogen's going to use to do its thing, right? So this main thing here, this actually doesn't make sense without this other part. So like that's the runner and whatever, but this is sort of how you would like use it, which is to say it's still a function. So from the outside of this JavaScript module, it still looks the same, right? You still call it the same way. React's still doing its thing. Redux is still doing its thing. Nobody knows that underneath we're doing Halogen stuff, right? That's the sneaky part. So we still do the same thing with the state, although it should be with the maybe and whatever, but we're not doing that. And then we just return this this React component, PureScript, right, with main, which comes from, what do we call that thing?
Format.
Oh, okay.
Which is a
Oh, what do we
weird
call it?
Yeah, the module. You said format?
Yeah.
Cool. So format comes there. It gives us that main function, which was this thing with the runner and all that kind of crazy stuff. And we throw that into this PureScript React component that does the halogen. I mean, you could call it halogen. It doesn't really matter what you call it. And we toss the state in there, right? So then when we're down in here, bless you, we call main, which is this function, right? Takes an HTML element, returns a function that takes a state, which is the state of the props. And then it's this af thing, right? This is the thing where you have a success and a failure that you need to deal with. And so we sort of deal with it. So when it's a success, and when we've run it and we get back this IO, this callback thing here that lets us do the querying, we take that, put it on this so that we can use it later on. And then when it's a failure, we do nothing. So that's really bad. We should probably handle errors, but we're not. So there's like different callback methods in React that are like what to do when something happens. And one of those callbacks is should component update, which React used to say whether or not it should call this render function again. And if we didn't override that callback, what would happen is that each time we passed a new state into this thing, it would create a new halogen component and put it on this DOM. So like each time you click add to cart or whatever, it creates a new component and a new component and a new component. So you just get like a list of things. But we don't want that, right? We want React to not update the component whenever it gets props and stuff, right? But when we do get the props, which is our state, we want to send the query down into the what's it called, right? So assuming we have the query, then we do this unwrapping thing as well, right? But then we send this down into our callback here, and that ends up giving us an af something or rather, I don't really know. But like, then we probably should handle the asynchronous stuff. If it's a good thing, if it's a bad thing, do whatever, but hack it together, right? And then that should be it. So that was like 10 minutes of me talking.
Where's price coming from?
Where is price coming from? Where is price coming from? I probably copied something wrong.
Where's that? Oh. Is component will receive props supposed to get a state, or is it supposed to get something else with a state in it?
Yeah, this should be
You probably should.
price,
Okay.
quantity, title. Does that make sense? Okay. So that should work.
Is that just JavaScript syntax?
Mhm.
Okay. It's relative to me.
I mean, it's not going to work because we're not doing the maybe thing, but like it could work if we did the maybe thing.
It's just piece of copy paste.
Should, like, do I need to run it? Do you guys believe me? You don't believe me. Does anybody believe me? Does anybody care at this point? Is that enough?
Maybe. No,
I don't know. Is that good?
The interesting discussion I think is why would you mix this into React?
Why would you mix this into React? So yeah. So the whole idea with this workshop was that like you can't just like stop production and start writing everything in PureScript, right? So one approach to, and like people want to write PureScript, yeah? So like one approach to that is to find some new project that's not related to anything and like start writing in PureScript and use whatever you want, and like it just lives by itself, right? And then like slowly you can try to do other stuff and like more new stuff can be there. But like there's going to be a point in time where you can't make something that's completely separate. It needs to interact with something else. So if you're already using React, you should be able to start taking it over by using some hacky stuff like this just to set up the plumbing,
That's
right?
no longer worth it. Like, I understand what you're saying, but not. Maybe it's worth it just to wait for the new project and do it completely with PureScript, because those
Yeah.
hacks are not simple. To be honest, like to do that all the time when you.
But you only have to do this
It's not, that's,
Yeah,
once for
you
each,
should
like-
you should only have to do it once, right? Because if you just make the state polymorphic, then everything should be fine, right? And then like whatever this handle state thing is, well, I don't know. Somehow you could figure it out, right? You can somehow make it so that when you get a state, you end up making this thing. Maybe you need to change like the arguments that you get. Maybe you need to change how this query thing works. But like, we only had 6 hours, right? And we already ran over.
The mechanism work for all, so yeah, it's probably worth it.
Yeah, sure. But also, it doesn't really need to, right? Like the goal isn't that you have this kind of stuff lying all around your application, right? Also, this part can be put in a component somewhere, like this JavaScript side, but not the other side, right? Which I think is less of an issue because it's like typed on that side, on the PureScript side, so you can't really mess it up. But like this whole thing, you're not supposed to be like writing this kind of this the whole time, right? You're not supposed to have 12 of these implementations. But like you start in one place and then you start, when you have that under control, you move it up to the next component, right? And then you rewrite 3 or 4 things. And then when you have that under control, you move that up to the next component, right? And you just sort of like go up the tree until there's no JavaScript left, right? And then that's the goal, right? No?
Or the other way.
So time for another question.
Yeah.
Let's say I have the ability to just throw everything away and create it from scratch.
Then don't do this.
And yeah, but then the most important, interesting for me is that I was looking into the different frameworks for PureScript. I found like Halogen and Fox. And I mean, which one of them should be my kind of first thingy?
What is your, that's a tough question. So what's your experience with typed functional languages? And
Fairly good.
then I think, so I think Pux is just simpler, right? Because it does things a certain way. I don't know if that's like, I don't know that it's like less expressive than Halogen, and I don't know that Halogen is more expressive than Pux, but like, I think there are 2 ways to solve the UI problem, and I think either one is a good choice, but it's more like dependent on you and the people that you work with than anything else, right? Because, I mean, there were a lot of like blank stares when I was explaining like how the query algebra works and all that stuff, right? So if that's a barrier for you and your team, then like probably don't try to push Halogen first. See how they, oh, well then just do whatever you want, right? Here's what you could do. Do one thing in Pux, one thing in Halogen, see how you feel about both, right? Because like I can't tell you how you're gonna
I
feel.
guess that was my plan anyway, so.
Yeah.
Also,
I have to see.
Halogen to me seems a little bit more pure, right? I mean, it's a
Yeah.
little bit more focused on kind of a pure functional approach all the way down, and you're not going to have to do virtually any JavaScript FFI stuff. So there's that. From last time I checked, which was forever ago.
That's a plus.
Exactly. You can just write in one language for the most part.
I think if you have the ability to just do whatever you want, then don't do this hacky stuff, right? Don't try to incrementally take over.
I really do not like I mean, that's...
Well, so here's the thing, is like,
Halogen is the clear answer for you.
you shouldn't have to write this anyway, right? Like that shouldn't even be on your plate. The only thing that you should do, like if somebody made this into a library, is this right here. You just put your main function and the state, and you're done, right? You don't have to worry about all the hackiness that's going on underneath, and you shouldn't, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not advocating that this is the best approach to do this. This is just an approach that I came up with, right? And it's something that like you could continue doing.
It's actually funny because it's not the hacky stuff underneath, but the pure stuff underneath and the hacky stuff on top.
That's how with these it's like ETA. If you guys have been following ETA at all, which
Oh yeah,
Haskell compiles is
yeah, heck yeah.
to the JVM, I mean, it's the same thing. Like you're like interop with Java on top, and then everything underneath is Haskell. You know, so it's it's weird.
All right. I mean, that's pretty much all I got for y'all. Right? So what do we do today? React? Hell yeah. No? Redux. I'm alone. That's all right. We learned a little PureScript. That was good, right? Yeah. Okay. We used just plain PureScript from JavaScript. That was way less hacky than this last thing, right?
Yeah.
That's something that you could do. Yeah.
That was really cool.
We learned about F. We learned about types. We learned a little bit of Halogen. Not enough, I feel like. And we hacked together some Halogen from JavaScript.
I kind of like everything that doesn't have from JavaScript in it.
All right, that's it. That's all I got. Thank you all.